So the next garden we're going to be visiting is the garden of Debie Rankin. Debie's garden is in Yakima in the city center. It's a really great garden. It's a smaller landscape. And what she's done is created a beautiful series of vignettes throughout her landscape. It's one that I really enjoyed, and I hope you do too.
Welcome to the Yakima Area Arboretum's 2020 Virtual Garden Tour. With our host, Jeff Ventroba, we want to invite you along as we explore 5 of the Yakima Valley's most intriguing and inspiring gardens. This episode is brought to you by Marie Makita with Heritage Mold Tray Real Estate.
So today I'm in Debie Rankin's garden here in Yakima in her cottage garden, and she's been generous enough to share her garden with us for the virtual garden tour for the Yakima Area Arboretum. She has this beautiful stonework that leads up to the front of her house that has been here for many years. And what she's done that's quite brilliant is she's allowed things to self-sow in the garden. And for a lot of gardeners, that's really hard to do. You have to be patient. You have to let things reveal themselves over the course of a season. And she's done a really good job of that. And if we look down here, I'm going to kneel down and show you some of the things that she's done that's pretty great. So if you look here closely, you're going to see a lot of different things going on here. You have some violet that's actually underplanted in the roses here, and these are a knockout rose, which is a great shrub rose. The thing I like about them is it's a perpetual bloomer throughout the season. They start kind of this brilliant pink, they go to a shell pink, and then they actually turn to kind of a peach, nice cream color. They drop, and then they have another big flush of blooms. You really don't even have to deadhead them if you don't want to. And then again, underneath those, to kind of hide the naked knees of those roses, you have the violets. You can actually have some sedums that are creeping down in here, as well as some geraniums, which are also a great plant and a great companion for roses. And a lot of times people think, well, what do I plant with my roses? I don't just want a rose in my garden. And she has nepeta, a catmint in here as well. She has creeping woolly thyme, which when you walk up a walkway, it's a great thing to have because it releases a scent as you step on it. The other thing that's actually my favorite in this area is the little alpine strawberries. They will self-sow, and if you're patient, you leave some of the strawberries behind, they'll actually pop up in the crevices. And that's right here, and these little pink flowers too, which are really bright in the spring as well. The berries themselves are actually really tasty. They're really small though. And same thing with the sedums. A lot of people rush to deadhead. I like for things to age a little bit, and Debie has done that here, and by doing that in this rock crevices, it actually will take care of itself. It will replant and resow, and then every year you get a different combination of plants that are blooming. So here's an example that she did with this geranium, and it's the same thing. So this one is done blooming, and if she were to shear this back, it would bloom again for her. But what's cool is she's left these seed pods on here, so when those are ripe and they are exposed, they'll again sow down through this crevices, and she'll have this one here, but then they'll also be in other locations throughout her garden. So I'm in the other front area of Debie's rock garden, and this is a great composition that she has going on here. She has the Acer palmatum right up top here with the deep burgundy foliage. Below it, she has the snow in summer with that silver. It's a great contrast. It really gives you that depth of perspective at the top, coming all the way down to the bottom here of this bank. The other thing that she's done is she's repeated these silver tones kind of throughout this area of her garden, starting with this ground cover here. She moves over to the California poppy, into the dianthus, and then up and over to the lavender here. The other thing again I'm going to point out is another reason to not deadhead is California poppies are really hard to grow from transplant. You actually want them to grow from seed for them to be successful. And you also get some hybridization of the colors. And if you look here, she has these bright yellow that are just ending, and you have these beautiful seed pods. It just gives that really neat architectural contrast to the ferny foliage on there. And then if you go down here lower, you actually have some deep russet orange California poppies, and that's just letting nature do its thing. And again, you'd lose that all if you were to deadhead these too soon and not let those seed pods ripen. Same is true with this dianthus here. And a lot of people will want to shear this, and she could still shear this back and get a second bloom. But if you let those seed pods ripen, you're going to broadcast those through all these nooks and crannies in this rock garden. So again, just use that. Let nature do its own thing. Let it have a chance to establish itself and create that tapestry. And it's going to be a lot more spontaneous, a lot more flowing than what you would get if you tried to plant them on your own. And then the other thing you can even see deep down here is all these sempervinums and hens and chicks that she has tucked in here. These will do a lot of the same thing. And they get these really cool seed pods here that come up in the flowers. They look actually like a coral reef when they're blooming. And again, if you can see this contrast in shape and color, and it's really quite intimate, just this little 12-inch square here, what this does for you visually and emotionally when you take a look at it. And again, it's something else that you can do in your own garden on a small scale. You could do this in a pot, or if you just had a small balcony, you could put it in a hanging basket even. So just something to remember when you're looking at seeds and perennials and letting them mature naturally themselves and enjoying the whole characteristic of that plant throughout the season. This is a great example of letting nature do its own thing and letting things self-sow. And right here in this crevice, you can see I can't even put my finger down through this crack here, but you have an entire lavender bush that's going to be growing out of here. And then right above it in this tiny little crevice, there's just a small amount of dirt, you have sedums that are starting. So again, this is a perfect example of how you just let nature take its course. You let your garden do its own thing a little bit, and you get something spectacular like this just on a tiny scale. So the next area up on top of that rock wall in Debie's garden, I want to show you what she's done here with color and kind of a little bit of a borrowed landscape. So her house was built in the 1930s. So there's some old established trees here. And what she's done is accentuate those trees to create a beautiful design pattern or a triangle pattern in her yard. What that does for you visually is from the street, you see that first Acer palmatum. You come in here behind me and you see this larger one here. And then you have a smaller lace leaf down here. And then behind you have the plum tree. So what that does again is it just sweeps your visual field all the way through the yard and up and beyond and really expands that space. The other thing that she's done that's really cool is she's added some evergreens into this composition that's a contrasting color. And this is perfectly seen in the spruce here. So you have those blue tones that we talked about that are a little bit lower, those blue grays. And when that is backlit against that burgundies and those dark purples, it really stands out and gives you that visual interest that otherwise would be pretty flat. The other nice thing that she's done here again is she's let things self-sow. Again, allowing herself to not be perfect with her gardening style and embracing that cottage garden. So we have this malus here that's a great one, and it also has those purple tones. And she's kind of selected those throughout her garden and let them place back into this rock wall and gives you that repetition and that cottage effect that she does so brilliantly in her garden. So the other thing that's really important to do in your garden is to create a sense of entry and exit. And in Debie's garden, she's done a great job of that. And behind me, you'll see a climbing rose that is going over an arbor that leads you right back into the back garden and the side garden. It just visually pulls you into that space and just really kind of embraces you as you move through her garden. So we're in the backyard of Debie's house, and she's created this beautiful area here. And I want to remind you that when you're in an enclosed space, people feel better. You feel more intimate. It's more emotionally rewarding for people as well. And what she's done is create this beautiful bowl effect. And she's utilized numerous aspects of her garden. And the other thing that's quite fascinating too, and pretty amazing, is this was not here 13 years ago. This was actually just sloped. And so what she's done is utilize the large trees up there, these shrubs, these Hollywood junipers, and she's pruned them beautifully again, respectful of those old plants. And then she's come down with the lattice work with the honeysuckle on them, all the way down here into the bottom where we're standing now. And it just gives that intimacy. And it's something that I would really encourage people to think about. Even if you don't have a slope or you don't have hardscaping or the ability to create the hardscaping, you're able to do this with plants. You can do this with large and small pots. But again, just really think about creating that sense of intimacy when you're out in your garden rooms. So we're in the backyard now of Debie's garden, and I'm at the end of that beautiful retaining wall that she had built. in that terrace garden. And what she did here, which is really brilliant, is she actually preserved some of that slope. At the top of the slope, we have this really old, amazing walnut with this beautiful canopy that gives you that filtered light, especially in the afternoon, as this is a western exposure. And that's allowed her to utilize shade planting with evergreens. So she has her azaleas, and she has her laurels and her Paris here, and some annuals and perennials that are mixed in with there, and some subshrubs like the astilbes. The other thing is we moved down the pathway, which is pretty cool. And this is a narrower lot. And what she's done is she's actually at the end of the lot done a composition with pots here. And then above it, she put those mirrors. And again, that changes your perspective. When you walk around the corner, you see that it visually lengthens out and makes the space feel a lot larger than it would normally. So I'm moving further back into Debie's garden here, and I want to show some things that she's done that's really creative. And one is she has these azaleas here. Azaleas obviously are spring bloomers and evergreens, so you're getting that beautiful texture throughout the year. And what she did brilliantly is she actually planted this clematis to grow through this. This is one of my favorite things, is people think clematis need to be on their own trellis. Naturally, they vine and they climb through plants and trees and shrubs. And so you have this here. So this azalea has been done blooming for probably over a month, but you're going to have this continual bloom of this clematis for probably an additional month from what we're looking at right now. And so again, just really pay attention to that composition and kind of think out of the box a little bit with how you're using your vines in your garden, and use them to layer your landscape as you go. On this side too, she's repeated that purple here, so you have the purple lavender. And then as we come up here, another really creative thing she's done is she's actually put a shed back here. And it's a great shed. It's actually also a greenhouse and a little bit of a studio for her. So if you have a small space and you want to have some of those things, it's possible. Just get creative with how you're going to approach that. So we're at the west edge of Debie's property here, and we have some really cool aspects here. One is this old wall that was built in 1956. So this is, if anybody is lucky enough to have something like this is great. What this does is really delineates her space. It gives her that just solid kind of, again, encompassing area for you emotionally, and tells you that the garden is ending. So this is something that we can't all have, but we can get this effect with screening. We can get this with pots. We can get this with evergreens and columnar plants as well. If you look over here, we have the walnut tree again, and the beautiful canopy and the light through that. And if you come up to this upper part of the garden at the edge, we have that honeysuckle and that lattice work that we saw from the lower garden, which again gives you that sense of privacy. And what she's done here, she's actually created a future garden room for herself. When you come to the end of the grass here, kind of tucked into this area with the Rose of Sharon, with these rhododendrons that are grown just beautifully, and under these Hollywood junipers, just a perfect place for a future sitting area to enjoy in the shade and the seclusion of the plants that are behind me. So if you look at the view behind me over my right shoulder, and we talked about the street level garden and the rock wall, as we've moved through this garden, she actually has 4 stages, 4 terraces of the garden, which really gives her some depth and some volume to her space, and really gives her that ability to really enjoy all those different pocket rooms with a completely different perspective on her garden. Debbie, I really want to thank you for letting us visit your garden today and invading your space. It's a beautiful space. I just want to ask you a couple questions. Like, what is your inspiration? What motivates you to get out and get in your yard?
I just like to be out in the fresh air, and I love all the colors in the yard. And my goal is to always have something blooming, perennials.
Sure.
So I do have annuals in the pots, but it kind of starts in the spring with the daffodils and the tulips, and then it just kind of keeps on going. So end of June, first part of July, then it's kind of like, what goes next?
Sure.
So, but I love the different colors.
Neat. And you obviously have a beautiful rock work here, and you do a lot of work here too. And you've been here for about 15 years?
Yeah, I've lived here for almost 17 years this fall.
Great. And the house was built in
1931.
Okay, so you have a long history of the house as well. Have you found that interesting, and to integrate kind of the age of the house with your garden and kind of, using that cottage style? Has that been an inspiration as well?
Yeah, because I like roses, and I kind of think of that as a cottage style too.
Sure.
And like a lot of this rock work going up to the front door, that was already here when I moved in. I didn't do any of this rock work. I've just kind of taken out shrubs and put in more flowers.
Yeah, great.
That's basically what I've done out front.
Nate, well, you've done a beautiful job, and
you.
the Yakima Area Arboretum really does appreciate your support and letting us take your time to do this virtual tour with us this year.
Well, I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot.
I'm Marie Makita. I've been a realtor in Yakima now for 21 years. Pride of ownership is a real thing in terms of maximizing the price a buyer is willing to pay for your home. Doing a beautiful yard like this really enhances the buyer's experience and draws them into your home to see what you've done on the inside as well. Don't overlook the importance of working on your yard. Clean beds, flowers, and a well-kept lawn really make the difference. You don't have to do something tour-worthy like this beautiful garden, but those small details really do make a difference. I encourage you to consider making an investment with the Yakima Arboretum this year. They really are an incredible resource for you and for our valley. All you have to do is consider making an annual donation or a one-time gift. They're there to support us in keeping Yakima so beautiful.
I really hope you enjoyed Deborah Rankin's garden and found some inspiration in a small landscape and how you can create your own vignettes when you're gardening. I want to thank Marie Makita for sponsoring this latest episode. We have one episode left, so I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss it. It's a garden of Kim Brewer and Rick Main. This garden was inspired after a trip that they took to Greece. It's a really appropriate garden for the Intermountain West, for our own Yakima Valley, and a high desert type of a climate. They just have really blended their own personality with this landscape. And a lot of times you think of it as desolate, and it's really rich and vibrant, truly inspiring. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss this upcoming episode.